right?
Johnny, that's just for you as we kick off week 45 of the Bible Recap Podcast. Welcome back, everyone. It's so good to see you again. And you are more than welcome to download and, of course, watch on Facebook, but it's also available on our website, and you can watch anytime you want.
Anywhere.
Anywhere. Anytime, anywhere. In the air and on the ground.
On the way to Seattle. Talking to someone in the audience.
And if you're a spouse of anyone who watches this, feel free to hit that like button. Let us know that you watched.
Or comment so we actually know you watched. We're not putting this
we'll
on
watch
the...
we'll watch the replay in administrative mode. Let us know when that thumbs up shows up. It's like, oh. All right, guys, welcome back in. Tyler, Don, and I'm Josh. Again, our reading for this week, week 45, Matthew 23 to 26. Mark 13 and 14, Luke 20 to 22, and then John 13 to 17. And it is Tyler's turn this week to kick us off.
All right. Read Matthew 23:3 aloud.
All right. Therefore, all that they tell you, do and observe, but do not do according to their deeds. For they say things and do not do them.
Yep. What direction does Jesus give his followers about the action of the scribes and Pharisees? Is this shocking? Why or why not? I got to reread this because now I'm rethinking what I said.
The 23:3?
Yeah. Just where I have it somewhere. Where is it? There it is. Okay, because I'm thinking I read it backwards now.
The NASB could be a little wooden.
Yeah. I'll just read it. So you must be careful to do everything they tell you, but do not do what they do, for they do not practice what they preach. So, yeah, okay. What I was saying was right. I was half-heartedly listening. Sorry, Josh.
Oh.
Confession
at 8 o'clock.
Yeah. I just have, do as they speak. So listen to what they're preaching, but don't always listen to, or don't do as I do my actions. It was kind of what I was reading. You always hear, do as I say, not as I do. But it's almost like what I'm getting from that is they're saying something, but no, okay, that's where I'm getting confused. So are they're saying, don't listen to them, look at their actions.
Well, so remember the Pharisees really emphasize the law, and so they're teaching the law, they're explaining the law. And so other than the fence around the law that we talked about earlier, as they're teaching law, Jesus says, what they're saying is good stuff.
But they're not.
But they're not following it and don't follow what they're doing.
So don't do what they're...
So what I'm thinking is right. Yeah. So it's the opposite of the old saying is really what I kept coming in my head, do as I say, not as... No, really, that is what it is. Do as I say, not as I do. So, yeah.
So think about... So say there's a pastor in a church and they're not living a life. But they're preaching, they're saying all the right stuff. So in a sense, she says, well, the words they're saying is good because they're reading, following scripture, but don't follow their actions. They are not a model for life.
Kind of look at it, that's how some Christians get to be called hypocrites because, once we walk out of church, then we don't lead that lifestyle that we're coming to listen to and to be a part of. But
that's a part of a conversation we had last night at small group. Yeah.
Yep. Being a jackwagon is not a fruit of the Spirit.
No.
No matter how hard you try.
No matter how hard you try.
Too bad it isn't. I'd be pretty good.
Okay. Well, anyway, that wasn't shocking to me. I don't know if it was not shocking to you, but it was not shocking to me.
No, he's pretty much had it out with the Pharisees the whole time,
Yeah.
so it's not real shocking.
Well, and here's the interesting thing: if you were just to look at theological categories, if Jesus compared to the Pharisees, Sadducees, and whatnot, Jesus would actually be closest to the Pharisees. So it's almost like he's hardest on them because like you guys are so close,
Yeah.
but you're ruining it for everybody.
Yeah.
At least that's my analysis.
I'd say it's better than mine. So.
Number 2.
Yep.
Heeding Jesus' directions in Matthew 23:3 has more to do with knowing your own motives as opposed to knowing the motives of others. It requires us to have a certain level of self-awareness or discernment. How can we grow in these areas? Have you ever been made aware of a blind spot in your life, and how did that happen?
I just kind of went with trust your gut and follow what you know is right. God has given us the rules of the way. He's given us a whole book, even though it's 1,500 pages or more. It's not every situation, but you can kind of figure it out. But trusting yourself, being self-aware of what's going on around you too. Another old saying is, you are who you hang out with. If you're not with the greatest crowd, you usually follow those things. So put yourself in good positions. How can you grow in these areas? Just trusting it more, I guess.
I don't know what he's giggling about.
I don't know yet. Something. I can only imagine.
Okay, so the adage, the saying, you are what you eat. And then, of course, I thought about that, and then my mind went to, like, God told Ezekiel to eat the scroll, the law, and said, sweetest son, he's like, well, you are what you eat.
Yeah.
And I actually done a sermon series on the Bible called Eat This Book.
Yeah,
So that's where I was just losing myself in my own thoughts here. So I apologize.
No, you're good. But
He was having a moment without us.
I was. So sorry.
the only blind spot in my life is that when I was younger, I could be a follower, not really doing anything bad, but I was kind of just there in the back. In the movies, there's always the cronies, and I was one of the crony in the back. Leather jacket number 2, and the credits. So that's one thing where it's kind of like, all right, just make my own path, trust my gut, do what I think is right, and I don't put myself in those situations.
I have written down that I need to love with the Jesus heart. I mean, so if I'm living like Jesus's heart, then I can't go wrong. But have I, oh my yes, and have ever been made aware of a blind spot in your life? And yes, and how did that happen? I think it's called having children, for one thing. But my probably worst one is even in marriage and then having kids. You don't ever think that your kids would do that, or that your husband would do that, or I would do that in my marriage, and so you tend to judge others that have had that until it hits you in the face, and then you go, "Oh my gosh, yes." So
Have kids and a bunch of little yous running around is like, what is it about you? It's like, oh, it's me. They got it from me.
yeah.
I say they got it from my wife, but
Yeah. You need to write that down as one of your.
Oh goodness. For me, I think time of prayer, and I would use the phrase meditative prayer, where you take time to ask God to cleanse you, make you holy, and so you reflect on your week, and that's where, as Methodists, we have the bands and the small groups that are should provide some type of space to share thoughts, but also in the Wesleyan bands in particular, because it was a small, intimate group of like 2, 3, 4, 5 max, where you share your struggles, you share how the week went, the highs and the lows, and so and it's a space where even when you mess up, there's accountability, but there's also encouragement and support to create space for repentance as well. And some people, have those opportunities. Some people don't, unfortunately, or at least haven't found the right group yet. So I think that makes it tough. So how can we grow in these areas? I mean, providing space for ourselves and space to let others walk alongside us that we can trust to share those things. Let's see.
That's kind of what we've been doing for the last 43 weeks.
44.
44.
This is 45.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, okay, never mind.
Plus some breaks in between.
Yeah. 18 months.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Let's see. We're at number 3.
Yes.
All right, I believe it's my turn. In Mark chapter 13, Jesus talks with Peter, James, John, and Andrew and gives them information and instructions for what they will face. At the minimum, this text serves as information for us today, helping us understand what the early church endured and how Christ's prophecies were fulfilled. Do you think it also serves as instruction for us? Why or why not?
I do truly feel that. I feel that Christianity in general is being, I don't want to use the word attacked, but marginalized is probably a better word, where we're kind of just put to the side. We don't matter. It is the minority religions that matter going, in corporate America or even just in America in general. We just get put to the side, and I think this is, we've grown to the very top, and I feel like we're on that downward trajectory on importance. But I feel as the society today, we finally hit rock bottom and coming back up. So I think this is going to, the text is giving us the ability to see how the church was grown or built in general, and we can use that to grow and move forward.
Yeah, I think it's definitely instructional. And he wants us to stay alert, be prepared. And we can only do that if we pay attention to what happened.
Mm-hmm. I think there's some instruction there for us. I think with any information the disciples give, we have to be careful that we discover the right instruction and not overinterpret things. Because there's some, of course, cults, some theology, some ideologies out there where, the prosperity gospel that we talked about last week is a perfect example where there's a misinterpretation can take something totally out of context. And so that's really, all I've got to add before I start rambling.
All right, number 4 then. What are some ways we can practice waiting well as we wait for the return of Christ? What are some ways we can practice staying awake in the meantime? Well, I just have to discuss because...
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This one was just kind of not easy, but reading the word, studying, sharing with others. And I think that's, while we patiently wait, that's what we should be doing, is sharing that opportunity with others. And then, of course, praying, meditating.
Well, and I think throughout Jesus, in his end times comments, talks about really what he wants people to do is to do what he's told them to do. Follow him, live the kingdom life, grow in the fruit of the spirits, love, serve, pursue justice, righteousness, holiness, etc. Because before he goes to Gethsemane to pray, he tells the disciples, "You're going to do what I'm doing, but just greater things, in a sense, more things." And then, of course, that gets passed on with the Great Commission to make more disciples of him, to obey his commandments. And so, in essence, just following and doing what Jesus did. And so pursuing those things through worship, prayer, scripture reading, love, service, small group fellowship connection. I think Acts chapter 2, 42 to 46 is a great template. Talks about studying, talks about service, talks about gathering together for fellowship. Also, and there's two parts of eating, but I think one could indicate that that the celebration of communion is a part of it. But yeah, look at the early church right after Pentecost. That's, I think for me, that's a template right there.
That's what I was going to say. So,
and we'll speak more on that here in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
When we get to Acts. Actually, I think that's next week. Yep, that's next week. Woot woot.
there's a lot going on.
Yep. I love Acts.
Okay, I think I'm 5. Am I 5? And
Yep.
okay, so you want to, I've got my Bible.
I got her
marked.
here too.
Okay. Read Matthew 25, 31 through 34, 41, and 46 aloud.
So I have 31.
31 through 34.
When the Son of Man comes in his spirit, or in his glory, and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne, and all the nations will gather before him. He will separate the people one from another, as a shepherd separates sheep from the goat. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, for you are blessed by my Father, and take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world." What was I supposed to go to? I'm sorry.
And 41.
Okay. Then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, for you are cursed, unto eternal fire, prepared for the devil and his angels."
And then 46.
Then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life.
So what do these verses reveal about God and his character? What aspects of this are challenging for you? I struggled with this one.
I just went really simple. God will bless the faithful. I don't really find this challenging. I think I've always known about heaven and hell. I think it's known. You have to follow and live. So I do. Where I have the issues, and we talked about the other night, was those who've done well for themselves, but either don't know God or believe a different religion, have done well their entire lives, as in done good. Just because of faith, are they not going to heaven or hell? That's where I have my issue. But overall, I think as long as you've been faithful and good, mostly the good for others, you'll go to heaven.
Help me out here.
So from what I see, what these passages reveal, I mean, the whole story, I mean, just read portions of it, is a God who is just and fair, and that he also, out of his character, expects us to act justly,
Okay.
to be fair. And so that's where as Christians, we need to remember, yes, we are saved by faith, but as Paul reaffirms right after he says that, for good works, that there are things that he expects us to do if we believe and follow him. And so there's alignment of faith and action. And so in a sense, as some preachers have said, some commentators, faith is a verb. It's not something that's stagnant or static or sits there. That's something we have or possess. It's something that's very dynamic in, around, and through us.
So the challenging part could be if you have faith but if you're not
doing
have
anything.
the works, then that could be the challenging part for you. Yeah.
Because if the command is to love,
But you're not.
but say I
loving.
believe, but you don't. You're not loving. Because then, do you really have faith?
Yeah. That makes sense now. I just wasn't quite sure. I was kind of stumped on that one.
Yep.
Well,
So.
that may be. There's some aspects of it being very challenging then.
There is indeed.
There's a lot there.
Yep. All right, I believe number 6.
Yep.
I got the long one this time.
Thank goodness.
Let's see here. All throughout Jesus' ministry, we've seen him working to maintain the timeline of his death. As the day approaches, he begins to reveal more information to his followers, despite the fact that he knows his betrayer is among them, noted in John 6:70. But in Matthew 26, he even reveals the means and the day of his death. What do you think the group dynamic is like in the days leading up to his death? Imagine the scenario from the perspective of Jesus, his followers, and his betrayer.
Well, there's a lot there. I think it would be, when he throws that out there, if you're anyone other than Judas, like, is it going to be me?
Mm-hmm.
I think I would be looking out, wondering who it is, who's the mole.
Yep.
But at the same time, you're worrying, am I going to do something?
Mm-hmm.
And then on Jesus' side, knowing who your betrayer is and still treating them with respect and dignity and, just as it's another day.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that you have to be betrayed to save everyone.
Mm-hmm.
That has to hurt.
Yeah.
It's not.
So what do you think about Judas's perspective?
I try not to be a Judas, so
But here's the,
Yeah.
but think about the as a person who, in a sense, he's given up everything,
yeah.
and we can kind of glean that Judas may have come from maybe an upper middle class family,
Mm-hmm.
so he's given up everything to follow this Jesus, seen some awesome things, but you also hear the plans that the religious authorities are not happy, that they are going to bring the hammer down, so to speak. And now there's this offer, it's like, if you're willing to point him out to us at the right time, we'll line your pockets. You'll get back you'll get back your life.
Wasn't it 35 pieces of silver?
30.
So back then, was that a lot?
That'd be a good chunk of money, because he could still go back home too.
Okay.
I think you would never feel, he had to have felt guilty. He had to have felt like he is betraying, and how could he do that to somebody he was calling his friend, and he was believing in and following in him. It'd make me feel like crap. But yet he was still willing to do it.
Yeah, and of course we'll read, and he does utterly and totally regret it and tries to give the money back. But just think about it, before they arrest me, just you see the writing on the walls, like, this is not going to go well for him or anybody in this group. And so we could say maybe Judas thought, the thought did cross his mind of an exit strategy. I can make a deal with the government. I can get full immunity and get some pocket change.
Yeah.
I just gotta turn on the other guy. Turn on your buddy.
Snitches get stitches. Well, he did. He killed himself.
He got one big stitcher.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We're getting too far.
We're not going to go down that.
There had to have been tension amongst the whole group, nervousness, and then again guilty and betrayal.
Well, and what's recorded for us, Peter says, Jesus, if everyone betrays you, if everyone's turned back, I'm good. Homeboy is good. And of course it says that everyone else made similar proclamations like, Jesus, we got your back. We are in it for the long haul. And of course, Jesus tells Peter specifically, before the rooster even crows, you're going to deny me. Not once, not
but
twice,
3
3 times.
Yeah.
So
That's the one thing, the
It's
passion.
an awakening.
So I went to PSR, which is our youth group for Catholic, and then we would always watch the Passion, and that's something that like we would talk about that for a couple of weeks before, really kind of, and then we'd watch it, and it's like to be able. I still remember like it's almost like a maze of where he was at, and he's like denying 3 times. It's just like I could only imagine his heart in that point. It's like he knows what he's doing. He does it to save face almost. And yeah, it's
because again, the human tendencies we have, because he's faced that social pressure. Aren't you one of those guys too? I don't want to get arrested. I don't want to get killed. I don't know him. So that's where, that's where I've learned to have a heart for Jews, because I mean, just again, the natural human tendency, even though that was part of the plan, but just then thinking about other people who end up doing the same thing, who betray us, just like so that's where I came up with the phrase, don't be surprised if the world acts like the world. Because it makes it that much tough, and that's where Jesus talks earlier in the gospel about counting the cost. Like, this is a tough life, really. I mean, there's life eternal, there's joy, there's a lot of great things, but when it comes to sometimes family, sometimes social connections, sometimes your financial situation can be impacted, because Jesus said, and we really didn't cover it in any of our questions. I kind of think we should have. Where Jesus says, I didn't come to bring peace with a sword.
Yeah.
That's gonna be father against son, mother against daughter, friend against friend. It's like, holy smokes, it doesn't look like a kumbaya around a campfire picture. No. There's going to be some tough discussions and some hurt relationships just because of the name of Christ, and that's what I think can make it so hard when we talk about with the judgment piece. I mean, in the previous question, is that if the ultimate goal is to know God and follow Him, and not that we want it at the expense of anybody, but if God of the universe says you got to recognize me. I've created everything. You got to at least acknowledge I exist and be in a relationship. But that makes it tough because our human relationships are right here, and so that's where it can the temptation to compromise our faith.
Talked about that the other night too.
Yeah. Sorry, a little heavy. My natural personality.
Yeah.
Let's keep things light, but we got to go deep sometimes.
Yeah, especially during this era. All right, number 7. Why do you think Jesus feeds the last? I'm sorry. Why do you think Jesus feeds the Lord's Supper to Judas? How do you think Judas feels about this? I said Jesus loves all, even sinners. He treats everyone the same, even if he knows you're going to betray him. And he always... I might make this up. Did he forgive him before he even did it?
I don't think there's an explicit phrase.
Okay. Maybe I'm thinking of something else.
He does say earlier that, something to the extent, the judgment on the one who betrays the Son of Man, that won't be a pleasant experience. But I think for me, just seeing Jesus being, even though Jesus knew it was going to happen and that there wasn't going to be a change, his love for Jesus was so much that he was still had a seat at the table and still was offered to be in his presence. Because he could have, he's like, you're not going to be a part of this group. You're out. I know what's going on. Who you kidding? but it just shows how big God's love is for those who've done horrible things, that he still provide the opportunity to repent and turn back.
Do we think you also brought him there because if I'm remembering correctly, he had the Last Supper, Jesus goes to pray, they fall asleep. When he comes back is when Judas betrays him.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he told him, he had him still there so that he could fulfill his prophecy?
Well,
that makes sense
so,
what I'm saying.
So in the sense of the timeline, this is not the full Passover meal, because she points out that I was glad that they're eating leavened bread. So it's still a meal, a part of the Passover festival. And so, because even in here, it is said that when Jesus says, what you do quickly. Mm-hmm. And, then he leaves after the meal. And it says that the disciples thought, well, that was weird, but they just presumed that he was going to go get stuff for the next one, that Jesus just sent him on an errand. And so that's when Judas gets the temple guard and soldiers and the mob
To come.
Okay. But, Judas probably was feeling pretty antsy.
Oh, yeah, probably highly anxious.
Because he's probably waiting to see if he's going to get called out.
Mm-hmm.
All right, number 8 to you.
Okay. Who is humbled in the act of foot washing? The one doing the washing, the one being washed, or both? And why?
I put both.
I put both as well.
I do too.
Mostly because I don't let people touch my feet. But where they really put is, as the washer, you're having to give yourself to the washed. Mm-hmm. Like, you're in an intimate location. You were kind of below them. You're kind of saying, you are, and especially at that time, it was, it was a very big deal. Mm-hmm. But also to be receiving that from someone mm-hmm. above, what you would see as above you, is kind of gives you some self-confidence, but also could be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So
I put it very simply, both. You're accepting love and you're giving love. I mean, it's just...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for Jesus willing to further step down, so to speak, mm-hmm. to really demonstrate this is what love and leadership looks like. And then, for the person receiving, it's like, if he's willing to step down so low, where do I need to step further to condescend to where I need to be as in my character? Not something fake, but as something that's a natural reaction. Number 9?
Right.
Yeah.
All right. What do you think of C.S. Lewis's statement that Jesus was either lunatic, liar, or Lord? That's a good one. Is there another possible alternative? Why or why not?
I had a hard time with this one. Mostly because I feel like as a Christian I've had this thought before of, and what if I'm not following the right person? Like, mm-hmm. what if what the Muslims are saying are true, or the Jewish that he isn't who he says he was? Does he, just someone's crazy really thought he was, or is he lying about the whole thing? Or is he really God? And that is where faith comes in, that you have to trust. Again, go back to trusting your gut. Like we talked about earlier, I truly believe that Jesus is God. Jesus is the one. He's telling us the truth. So to me, he's Lord. To me, there's no other possible alternative. Because to me, those would be kind of the three things it could. If I'm wrong, those are the only other two things it could be. He's either lying or it's crazy. I don't feel that I'm wrong, so I feel that he is Lord. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I think it's good because a phrase I use when it comes to the basic facts argument for the resurrection, I may have heard it, but something I've used is people don't die for what they know is a lie. So, so I think the three options Lewis gives is I mean, that's our choices. You know, he is who he says he is, so he's Lord. He's either a liar, but if people don't die for what they know is a lie, I think he would have gotten arrested or gotten for a pilot says, I was kidding. Yeah, I was just messing around, which could probably still have been executed, but we would not have any of this.
No.
Or, you know, it was lunatic. I mean, you know, lunatics don't think they're lying, but they're also completely wrong. And so, and that's where, you know, for me looking at history, and, you know, of course, you know, then comparing it to others is where he's not a lunatic. It's not a liar. From all the evidence I've seen, he is who he says he is. And we've learned enough. For those who don't know, if you look through the historical documentation, even about historical figures you learn about in middle school and high school, there is more support for what's in this book than there is for many others.
Yeah.
Well,
But yet we treat this differently.
in the last 6 months, they believe they found bricks from the Tower of Babel
I've not heard that.
with Nebuchadnezzar's imprint on them.
Oh.
So that's
I'll
another.
have to look into that. And I always say that some of that's how with a grain of salt, because some of these people find things.
Yeah.
You know, like the ark that Noah built. You know, I don't think we talked about this before, but I don't think we're gonna find wood of a massive boat. I think he would have used it to build houses and burn things for
Probably.
heat. So, you know,
Yeah.
my story, I'm sticking to it. I've said it twice before you've even said it.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I haven't said it quite yet. My story's not done yet. That's why. You have anything to add?
Nope.
All right.
So, for those of you watching, if you don't have the book and you're just curious about that C.S. Lewis statement that Jesus was either a lunatic, liar, or Lord, that's in from his book Mere Christianity, and I highly recommend that read to anybody, especially if you're trying to get a little bit of philosophy and some understanding around how Christianity makes sense, and the reliability of what we believe.
Okay. Question number 10. The only favorite one of the week, because it's the only one that stays the same. I had 309, I think, is what I said. I closed my book. I don't think that's right. Let's double check.
8, 6, 7, 5, 309. I think you had 309.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. What did you have?
A 311.
I'll get
No,
there
I was-
someday.
Those weren't any of mine.
309.
Yeah.
Nope, that's mine. Oh, my stuff's going everywhere. All right. When you hear of wars and torment, do not be terrified, for these things must take place first take place, but the end will not be at once. Jesus says not to be terrified of these things. He knows it sounds frightening, but he also knows how it ends. So he is the only person that can say this with any kind of authority. He doesn't say things won't be scary or hard. He just promises that we do not go through those things alone. And that on the other side of it is what will live with him eternally. Whenever darkness comes our way, there is no threat to his light, and he is where the joy is. Kind of where the world is. It's kind of nice to know that not saying there's not going to be suffering, but he will be there with us.
Mm-hmm.
So I had 3 picked, but I think I'm gonna go with the long one, which is day 315.
Okay.
Jesus keeps reiterating the joy and peace he has for us. Let not your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Excuse me. Believe also in me. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full. I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world, excuse me. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world. You have sorrow now, but I will see you again, and your hearts will rejoice, and no one will take your joy from you. In that day you will ask nothing of me. The fullness of joy that comes from his presence will leave us wantless. How complete will our joy be if we can't think of a single thing to ask for? We have fullness of joy forevermore because he's where the joy is. I know. This about brings me to tears because I just think the fullness of joy that comes from his presence will leave us wantless.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and when do we not, every day we probably say, I want something, whether it's I want something to eat or I want to ride somewhere, but you're always wanting something. And then just for the actuality that is going to happen someday. It's beautiful.
Good stuff. All right. I had day 311. Along with don't be afraid, Jesus also calls his followers to stay awake. Amid all the partial information he gives, this is one of his clear commands. He never says, try to figure out when I'm coming back. He never says, see if you can piece this all together like a big puzzle. Instead, he says, stay awake. Don't be lulled to sleep by the world. And when things get crazy, don't be afraid. Share the gospel no matter what. When we know him, it becomes easier to trust him. And when we trust him, we can have the kind of peace that only he can bring, even amid uncertainty. We can walk out the values of his upside-down kingdom when we aren't trying to grab all we can get or make sure our earthly future is secure. We can trust that he's granted us an eternal inheritance, knowing Jesus helps us live with open hands no matter what happens, because he's where the joy is. I've listened to several old-time revival preachers, where it's only an audio recording, and there's one I read that and I heard his voice, "Awake, awake, you sleepy Christians!" I'm like, oh, because it just sometimes we can get into a routine of going to church, go to work, whatever our thing is, to where we can get too comfortable with the world. And so one of the prayers I pray, I try to pray it every day, but it's at least about every Sunday, is actually got from a scholar on one of the things that he observes in the performing of miracles in the book of Acts, is that these miracles were to awaken the people. And so that's one of the things that I pray for, is that whether through what I say, what I do, or through miracles, that people are awakened. Because, like I said, it's so easy to get comfortable that we lose sight of our part that Jesus invites us to do in his saving work in the world. Whether it's, reaching out to somebody or correcting an injustice or corruption in the government, to one of the questions we've had before. Because if he has called us to do it, he has given us the ability and the power to do it. We just have to do it. We got to stay awake.
Yeah.
Wake up, you sleepy Christians.
I'm getting tired.
Yeah. And of course, I really love Leonard Ravenhill. I encourage everyone to check him out. But just so you know, a little bit of Ravenhill goes a long way, because he gives haymakers every time. So, all right, guys. Thank you again so much for joining us. It's been a great week here, week 45 of the Bible Recap Podcast. And so join us again next week as we get into week 46. And that's, 7 left, including next week. Dawn was doing somersaults and handstands on her way in. And so again, in biblical order, and again, this is be in the description box. So next week, week 46, will be in Matthew. That's chapters 27 and 28. We've got Mark 15 to 16, Luke 23 and 24, John 18 to 21, and then we read the first 8 chapters of the book of Acts. All right, guys. Thank you again so much. We'll see you next week. Take care, and God
Have a
bless.
good week.
Bye.